Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Salamangreat Yugioh deck profile for post-structure deck Soulburner. Let me tell you, to get these structure decks is probably the most difficult thing I had to do. I had to search all over town. There were so many people, I think either just from, my locals, friends, you name it, who were searching for this deck, and, nowhere had them in stock. So grabbed as many as I could, finally found a store that had them, grabbed the whole box, not just for me, but for my friends, because they weren't able to find them, and was able to put together the deck profile. I'm very excited for this deck. I've always loved the Salamangreats, very cool Cybers deck, and the whole deck has just changed with the new cards we received in the structure deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for your main monsters, I run 3 Salamangreat Gazelle. If a Salamangreat monster is sent to the graveyard except Salamangreat Gazelle, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Salamangreat card from your deck or to the graveyard, except for Gazelle. And you can only use each effect of Gazelle once per turn. So this card has great setup just for special summoning and setting up for your Exceed monster, which is one of your big playmakers in the deck. So a definite 3 of, just for the fact that you have plenty of special summon and send options to use with your other Salamangreat monsters for sure. And I also run 3 Salamangreat Spiny. With this one, if you control a Salamangreat card, you can discard this card, then target one face-up monster on the field. It gains 500 attack until the end of this turn. If you control a Salamangreat monster other than Spiny and this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Spiny once per turn. So the special summon and the boost definitely do come in handy. Most of the time, the discard for the boost is just so you can set it up in the graveyard for that special summon, and if you use it for an Exceed summon, you're not going to lose the banish because it doesn't leave the field. It becomes one of the Exceed materials, so then it'll just end up in the graveyard again when you do, remove the Exceed material for the use of the Exceed monster effect. So very, very well done for sure. I really do like the turn that the Salamangreat deck has taken in terms of playstyle. And then I also run 3 Salamangreat Foxy. When this card is normal summon, you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you do, you can add 1 excavated Salamangreat card to your hand. Also shuffle the rest into the deck. If this card's in your graveyard and a face-up spell or trap is on the field, you can discard 1 Salamangreat card to special summon this card. Then you can destroy 1 face-up spell or trap on the field. You can only use 1 Salamangreat Foxy effect per turn, and only once that turn. So the search is very, very helpful for sure, but the second discard definitely does help to take care of some pesky problems of your opponent as well. I was debating how many of this I wanted to run in the deck. Decided at 3, just to keep the level 3 numbers pretty consistent for your Exceed summons. Foxy just works really well with Spiny and Gazelle for sure, with all the different effects you can get off and manipulate for the summons during the game. And then for the 1-ofs, I run 1 Salamangreat Jaguar. If this card attacks a defense monster, inflict piercing battle damage, and if you control a Salamangreat Link monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 Salamangreat monster in your graveyard except for Jaguar. Shuffle that target into the deck, and if you do, special summon this card to your zone your Salamangreat Link monster points to. You can only use this effect of Jaguar once per turn. With the piercing and the special summon, I've ran Jaguar in the deck ever since my first Salamangreat deck profile. Just great setup with the other Salamangreats you run, so never really a bad play when I can successfully use this card for sure. Just overall helps with just extending so many of my plays with its special summon and its full-on force power it has. Same with Salamangreat Falco. I run 1 of this as well. If it is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 Salamangreat spell or trap in your graveyard, set that target to your field, and if this card in your graveyard, you can target 1 Salamangreat monster you control except for Falco, return that monster to the hand, and if you do special summon this card, you can only use 1 Salamangreat Falco effect per turn, only once that turn. The reason I only run 1 of each, Jaguar and Falco, is because your other ones can easily set them in the graveyard, and it's a once per turn effect, so having multiples doesn't really get you elsewhere much, so just being able to set up those cards and then use them definitely does come in handy. And Falco, is the one reason I only run 1 of certain Salamangreat spell or traps, so you can just reuse them when they're destroyed in the graveyard. And then I also run, for generic support, 3 Lady Debug, a very important searcher in the deck. If this card is normal summon or special summon, you can add 1 level 3 or lower Cybers monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Lady Debug once per turn. The search, all the Salamangreat monsters are Cybers, so you have those searches available to you, and most of them are level 3 or lower, which is very, very helpful for sure with Lady Debug. This card only got better as the Salamangreat deck evolved, so definitely love running her in the deck for that search. much. And just for a little added backup, I still run the 2 backup secretary, no pun intended. If you control a Cyberse monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon backup secretary once per turn this way. So just for some of your other plays, very, very helpful for the fact that Mirage Stalio only needs 2 level 3 monsters. It's another great one there for sure. If you didn't want to run backup secretary, you can put in some additional hand trap options instead, just for the fact that she takes up one of those spots just for a more easier play if you didn't have the hand traps to run. But one that you should have if you've purchased the Soulburner structure decks is Ash Blossom. This card reprinted, which is pretty awesome in the Salamangreat structure deck. Very easy to obtain as long as you can obviously find the structure decks. But the fact that she's also a fire monster, just an added benefit for sure. And the fact that she is just that great hand trap to use. And if you want to get full sets, she just definitely does come in handy. To get your play sets of these, you'll get the 3 of her, and I'll definitely probably start using her more often in the deck profiles just because she is a little more budget friendly and easier to obtain for all players now. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 3 Salamangreat Circle. This is your searcher for the deck. You activate one of these effects, add 1 Salamangreat monster from your deck to your hand, or target 1 Salamangreat Link monster you control that was link summoned using a monster with the same name as material. That Link monster is unaffected by monster effects this turn except for its own, and you can only activate 1 Salamangreat Circle per turn. The fact that it's a quick play makes it all the worthwhile. You can get the search or the protection depending on whatever you need during that play. So very, very helpful. A definite 3 of for sure in the deck. And I also run 1 Fusion of Fire. We still have our Fusion option in the deck, just as an added one to take care of your opponent's Link monsters if they set up their field. You don't really need any more, I would say. If you want to add a second one, I can recommend a few cards later on to take out for it, just to try out, but then you'd also need to adjust your Violet Chimera options in the extra deck as well, but we'll get to that later in the video. I also run 1 Salamangreat Sanctuary. This card is searchable with some of your other cards, so the only reason I run 1 of it in the deck, and the fact that it helps you with your reincarnation link summoning, very, very helpful there. And you can also recycle it with Falco, which is why I only like to run 1 of this card in the deck. And I also run 1 Will of the Salamangreat. During your main phase, you can special summon 1 Salamangreat monster from your hand or graveyard. Then you can send this face-up card from the field to the graveyard. Then target 1 Salamangreat Link monster you control that was link summoned. Using a monster of the same name, special summon a Salamangreat monster from your hand or graveyard and defense up to the number of that monster's link rating. So this card is just great setup overall with your Salamangreat monsters. But another one of, since if it does get destroyed, you can just recycle it from the graveyard with Falco. And then a little added backup support. I run 3 Twin Twister. This one just very, very helpful for your graveyard setup for your Salamangreats. Being able to take care of your opponent's back row, pendulum scales, field spells, you name it, whatever. And then just the added benefit of going second if you do take care of those cards, setting up the Salamangreats in the graveyard to use their own effects. A definite 3 of, I would say. And then easily side it out if you wanted to go for some other cards to take care of if your opponent doesn't run spell or traps, obviously. And then I also run 3 Call by the Grave just to take care of some pesky hand traps that your opponent may have, or just pesky monsters in their graveyard that, would mess up their plays, obviously. And then I also run 1 Upstart Goblin and 1 Foolish Burial just for more graveyard setup. And then you go through a lot of cards in the deck, so Upstart just helps to get into some more important cards you may need for your plays. And then moving on to the traps, I run 2 Salamangreat Roar. Counter trap: when a spell or trap or monster effect is activated while you control a Salamangreat Link monster, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. And while this card is in the graveyard, if a Salamangreat Link monster is link summoned to your field using a monster with the same name as material, you can set this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only activate 1 Salamangreat Roar effect per turn and only once that turn. So the recycle effect is what I really like about this card. The overall negation, you should have that field setup you want most of the time with just the easy link summons you can do with the Salamangreat monsters. So I'll have to run 2 of this just for that added benefit of recycling it and then just having more for pressure. And I also run 1 Salamangreat Rage. You activate one of these effects. You send 1 Salamangreat monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, then target 1 card on the field, destroy it, and then you can target 1 Salamangreat Link monster you control that was link summoned using a monster of the same name as material. Destroy cards your opponent controls up to that monster's link rating. You can only activate 1 Salamangreat Rage per turn. That's why I only run 1 of it, but you have plenty of options depending on what you want to use this card for. So very powerhouse card. I would say I like Salamangreat Roar better, but this one definitely does come in handy combined with that card. And then just for a little added trap support, I run 3 Solemn Strike. This is definitely a control deck, so just being able to set up those other Salamangreat trap cards. And then Strike definitely does help. And the 1 Solemn Judgment. That back row setup, if you can stop your opponent's plays from either destroying your back row, then have the rest of the traps take care of their cards. It's just an added bonus with all your other monster plays you can do with the deck. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra. I run 2 Salamangreat Yugioh. I love the new art for this card. We've been over this card lots of times in previous videos, just what it can do with the shuffle, the spell or trap effect, and then being able to adjust your opponent's monsters when you reincarnation link summon it with your Salamangreat monsters in the graveyard. Very, very helpful for sure. Just running 2 of this for those plays. And I also run 3 of the new Salamangreat Duel Links. It's a Link 1 Salamangreat. You just need a level 4 or lower Cyberse monster to make it, so you can't use Duel Links to make it again. It'd be way too broken for sure. If it's Link Summon, you can add 1 Salamangreat Sanctuary from your deck to your hand. And if a Salamangreat card you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Instead, you can only use each effect of Duel Links once per turn. So that search for the 1 of field spell we run is also another reason I only run 1 of it. And that protection, it's just standard to run 3 of this since it's so easy to make in the deck as well. And then I also run 3 Sunlight Wolf, a very, very important card for the deck as well. Just needing 2 fire effect monsters. If a monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, except during the damage step, you can add 1 fire monster from your graveyard to your hand, and you can set this turn. You cannot normal or special summon with the effect of monsters during this turn. And during your main phase, if you control this card was link summon using a Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf, you can add 1 Salamangreat spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect of Sunlight Wolf once per turn. The reincarnation effect definitely does help, but the recycle search is another big key part of using Sunlight Wolf in the deck. And then for a little more generic link support, 1 Transcode Talker. This card, especially since we're running Backup Secretary for just easy cards to make, definitely does come in handy. And being able to recycle a lot of your Salamangreats that can even be co-linked with it, very, very powerful play as well. And then for a little more generic, I run 1 Nightmare Cerberus. I chose Cerberus over Phoenix in the deck just for the fact that we have Twin Twister, so a lot of easy spell and trap destruction. And Heat Leo shuffles back, so more of a monster special summon take care of, I would say. And 1 Borreload Dragon. If you have Sword, you can play that instead. This is just a little more budget for those that don't have Boral Sword, obviously. And then for the Exceed monsters, I run 2 Salamangreat Mirage Stalio. Just 2 level 3 monsters to make this. You can detach 1 material from this card to special summon 1 Salamangreat monster from your deck in defense. Also, you cannot activate monster effects for the rest of this turn except fire monsters. And if this Exceed summon card is sent to the graveyard as material for a link summon of a Salamangreat monster, you can target 1 monster on the field, return it to the hand. You can only use each effect of Salamangreat Mirage Stalio once per turn. Like I said, great Exceed monster for the deck. It just does so many plays for your deck that's insane. So I was debating how many numbers, but I found 2 to be the best because that's really all you need to get off all your plays successfully. And then I also run 1 number 75 Bamboozling Gossip's Shadow. This is just, I would say, another generic Exceed option to have the draw power, changing your opponent's effects. I would say definitely a great one for sure. If you wanted to try another rank 3 option, you can give it a shot in what you wanted. And lastly, the 1 Violet Chimera. This is just the fusion option, like I said. If you wanted to add in a second one, I would recommend maybe trying to take out the Bamboozling Gossip Shadow or maybe the Cerberus. And then for the additional fusion of fire, you can maybe take out the Upstart Goblin, just since it's that 1 generic go through the deck faster card. And that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, very excited. Probably going to be testing out this deck most of all at locals, so definitely can't wait to try it out. But until then, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.